Good morning. Welcome to today's virtual gathering of the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse in Springfield, Vermont. We are a caring community, happy to have you all with us. I'm Bob Allman, one of the trustees. Stay with us and enjoy today's service. There'll be an opportunity at the end for guests to introduce themselves, for people to share joys and concerns.
Welcome. It is great to see everyone from near and far. We're so glad you are with us today. And for our chalice lighting, we have words, of course, from Howard Thurman. We must find our place in the areas of new vitalities, the place where the old is breaking up and the new is being born. What a moment to be alive, and more importantly, to be aware. What a moment to be alive, and more importantly, to be aware. We are so glad you are with us this morning. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let these stories warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let our collective vision change and heal your heart. Welcome to our time of worship together. Thank you, Sharon. And let us introduce our team. We are so blessed that we have collaboration with the Empowerment Center in Washington, in the Washington, D.C. area, in Cheverly, Maryland, and also from Still Point in Georgia. So we are truly, truly blessed. And as I said in that opening quote, we are in an amazing time of the old is breaking up and the new is being reborn. And it can be a scary time, an uncertain time. But what better place can we look than to the life and legacy of Howard Thurman to help us envision together this new time? He is the medicine for right now. And this program is part of an 8-month series. We're about the halfway point. And we are so fortunate. We're collaborating with the Empowerment Center in Cheverly, Maryland. And so I just want to give an opportunity for Kristal and Usher to say hello. We're taking turns with preaching this month. It's Usher. And so Kristal, do you want to say hello? And a little bit about yourself and the Empowerment Center?
Yeah, greetings everyone. It's good to be with you this morning on this cold day. And it's just a pleasure just to be with everyone on a virtual platform. Hopefully one day soon in person.
Amen. Yeah. And so we found out, we're so lucky we found out about Usher through you, Kristal. So yes. Usher also works at the Empowerment Center. He is the senior minister there. He also works at Howard University. He used to be the minister at Northwold Appold United Methodist Church there in Baltimore. And he was a social worker for 25 years. And we are so glad, Usher, that you are with us this morning and that we'll get to hear you in the sermon part and your wisdom. But do you want to just say hello right now and a little bit more about yourself? You're muted, sweetie. Yep, you're muted.
That helps. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Peace and blessings to everyone. And I want to thank everybody for this wonderful platform. This is exciting. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to this wonderful service.
Super. So glad you're here. And we also, another collaborator in this 8-month endeavor is Robbin Ruffner, who is a religious science practitioner who hails from the Atlanta, Georgia area, the east side of Atlanta by Stone Mountain, and who is one of the founders with Reverend Mary Louise, who's also on today, of Still Point. So you want to say hello, Robbin, and introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning and Happy New Year to everyone. This is a time of new beginnings, and how exciting it is to be here and to be collaborating with this particular adventure. You know, I love Howard Thurman very much, and I'm just glad to be here. So greetings, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm getting teary-eyed just to be together. Seriously, I just feel so blessed that we're getting to do this. This is a crazy time we're in, and Howard Thurman, he's like a torch leading the way through this. And so, so Deb, could you share Omid's picture? So we're taking turns preaching, and there's 2 other people who are part of our team. One is Omid Safi, and he is just a remarkable human being. He works at Duke University. He is a professor of religion there. He's also the director of the Islamic Center there. And so Omid will be preaching on February 20th. Our series is happening on the 3rd Sunday of each month through May. And Omid is a Sufi. He's a Muslim, and he is so enthusiastic about Thurman, as are the rest of us. And when I asked him if he would join us, he was just thrilled. And so he's looking at next month. He'll be looking, kind of building on what you're doing today, Usher. He'll be looking at some of the social justice, sort of the wider view of Thurman and the folks that Thurman knew and hung out with, and the spiritual grounding of social justice work. So thank you for sharing that, Deb. And you know, while you have that up, why don't we just mention, you had the slide of Seth right there. Why don't we just mention that? Yeah. That would be easy. Why don't we just do that while you have it? And so next week, Seth Frisbee will be preaching, and this is a picture of Seth doing his lab work in Bangladesh, probably. So next week at 10 o'clock, it's kind of the ethical dimensions of when one is doing science work. And Seth has done incredible work in the world, discovering and finding a cure for mass poisoning that was affecting people in Asia, and also right here in the United States and other countries that are allowing toxins to get into baby food, baby formula. So you'll be hearing more from Seth next week about that. So I have just a little story to share with you from the life of Howard Thurman. And we are so lucky that we get to celebrate Martin Luther King this weekend. Tomorrow is the holiday, and the whole weekend is an opportunity to remember this great figure, this great person. And Usher's going to tell us more about the whole story of Thurman and Martin Luther King. So let me just share one little piece that there was a point early on in King's career. It was 1958, and this was his first ministry after he graduated from seminary, and he got just boom, got involved, was one of the leaders in the Montgomery bus boycott, and was suddenly on the national scene, just like from an ordinary guy to boom, right out there. And he wrote a book about the Montgomery boycott, and he was on a book tour. And this calamitous thing happened on the book tour. I don't have time to go into that, but he was injured. And so he's in the hospital recovering in New York City, you know, as part of the book tour. He was living in the South at the time, in Montgomery. So he had to rest up in the hospital. And Thurman came to visit him because Thurman at the time was in the Northeast. He was at Boston University. He was a professor at Boston then. So evidently he came down to New York City and he visited Martin Luther King in the hospital as he was recovering. And he said to King, "How long does the doctor say you're supposed to stay in?" And King told him how long it was. And then Howard Thurman says, "Add 2 weeks to it. Extend your recovery time by 2 weeks." And he said, what you need to do is think about the purpose of your life. Think about what's going on. And let what is unfolding in this movement come from that centered place of having been well rested. So only move forward after you've found that stillness and gotten quiet and really listen to the call from within, and then proceed with your civil rights work in the world based on that. That was the advice that Thurman gave to King. And King wrote him later and said, I'm listening. I heard you. I'm doing what you told me. And what part of what Thurman was afraid of, so the civil rights movement was just starting. I mean, from the Montgomery boycott, and it was getting bigger, and there was this national attention, and Thurman was afraid that King would just get swept up in it and kind of lose his bearing and get washed away. And so Thurman said to him, "Don't let that happen. Find your center." And so part of Thurman's message was, in this horrible thing that's happened, there's also a gift. There's a gift to turn it into an opportunity to heal and pause and listen to the still voice within you. Sound familiar? Anybody in a tumultuous experience in your life right now that is not what you planned, and yet here you are? We're all in that situation. So Thurman's message 63 years ago, more to Martin Luther King, when something really bad happens, use it as an opportunity to springboard, to listen to yourself and recenter. And once you're recentered, then engage in the world. So that's just a little story from the interaction between Martin Luther King and Howard Thurman. Thurman was a tremendous influence on King, and we'll hear more about that from Usher. So what was it all about for Martin Luther King, for Thurman, and for us? It's all about love. So join me, if you would, in the words of our affirmation. And these words are from the former minister of the church in Barre, Vermont. And I'm so delighted that we have members of the Barre, Vermont church with us today. L. Griswold Williams was a minister there in Barre in the 1930s, and he wrote these words, which are said by Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the country. So what's it all about, folks? Love is the doctrine of this community. Join me. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve the needs of all beings to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with the source of our being. Amen. And the choir has done a fabulous job getting ready for today. They are so excited, as the rest of us, about Howard Thurman. And we are about to hear the favorite Negro spiritual of not just Howard Thurman, but of Martin Luther King. They both, this was the one. There is a balm in Gilead. And as you hear it, and as in tumultuous times, to keep our sight on how it's okay, in spite of the appearance of on the surface, all of the tensions and all of the, but deep down underneath, just as in an ocean, there's waves on the surface, but deep down, there's calm. And that's what we're here about today. We're so glad you're with us to find that calm. Here's Kristal. I'm so glad you're here. Let's hear the reading you have to share with us, dear one.
Sure. It's just a pleasure to celebrate this day with everyone. It's an amazing time for us to celebrate Howard Thurman and what he's done. And there's a book that he wrote called The Mood of Christmas and Other Celebrations. And there's a poem in there that's just so awesome. And the name of the poem is The Work of Christmas Begins. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music in the heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristal. Well, happy rising, everyone. I'm so thankful for being a part of this wonderful community. But first, I want to give honor and love to the Universal Divine Creator and to our fearless leader, Reverend Dr. Mellen Kennedy. Thank you. Sister Minister Robbin, Ruffner, and my good friend, Reverend Dr. Kristal Owens. I thank you profoundly. And to all those who are listening to this virtual call, I honor the spirit and consciousness you bring to this platform. Bless you, and bless you. Well, this weekend, we are celebrating the enormous legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But for the past 50 years, Martin Luther King civil rights ministry and legacy has been talked about probably in every country, on every continent, church, temple, synagogue, college, university, town, family, around the planet. For the most part, we know about his speeches and civil rights nonviolent stance. But do we really know what shaped his philosophy? Do we really know what shaped his thinking and practice that changed the behaviors of those who practice oppression of Black, brown, and people around the country, around the world? So at this time, I want to reflect on the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his hidden figures, Dr. Howard Thurman and other influencers. I trust that this monologue will continue to create a dialogue that will allow Martin Luther King dream and vision become a reality. I specifically use the term hidden figures because there are significant people that some of us may know, like Howard Thurman, that had a profound impact on Martin Luther King's spiritual consciousness and practice. Again, most of us know a little bit about Howard Thurman, and because of this platform, we're talking more about him, and we're unpacking those wonderful behaviors and things and philosophies that he shared with us. I'm including Howard Thurman as one of the hidden figures because if you ask the average person who is Howard Thurman, they could not tell you who he is. And working at Howard University, I asked many students and people, do you know about Howard Thurman? And unfortunately, they don't know about him that well. However, those who've studied theology or attended seminary or divinity school, or maybe a pastor who studied Martin Luther King and Howard Thurman, who was impacted by him, may know, and they've taught their congregation a little bit about Howard Thurman, just a little bit. So some people have just a very marginal understanding of this great man. So why am I using the term hidden figures? Why am I using the term hidden figures? Well, over several years ago, a movie entitled Hidden Figures came out in the theater and had a huge impact on us. The movie highlights several Black women who had a significant impact on the space exploration in the 60s. Despite the racism and discrimination, these ladies persevered and allowed our country to experience space exploration for the first time. It took over 50 years for those women to get the recognition they well deserved. They were instrumental in making America great. Well, like those women who we want to lift up in this hidden figure, and despite all the mathematical brilliance of these women that allowed the US to travel to space, we don't know about them. So as the movie suggests, we call them hidden figures. Well, the people who influenced Martin Luther King Jr. and the practices of those who helped propel the civil rights movement were hidden from us. Well, if I may, here are my hidden figures. I'm going to begin with someone that you may not be familiar with, but prayerfully, as a result of this conversation, this monologue, you may do more research. I'm going to begin with Martin Luther King Jr.'s maternal grandfather, Reverend Adam Daniel Williams, pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. I believe one of the quintessential churches of the civil rights movement, and the church Martin Luther King pastored, as well as his father. Now let's look at how, coincidentally, Reverend Adams Daniel Williams impacted his grandson, Martin Luther King Jr. Let's look at this. I just want you to just examine this. Reverend Adams Williams was born on January 2nd, 1863. Now listen to this, a day after the effective date of the Emancipation Proclamation. Reverend Williams was one of the pioneers of the social gospel, civil rights activism, and business developer in Atlanta. More importantly, he was one of the founders of the Atlanta chapter of the NAACP. Ebenezer had a very small congregation when he began his ministry, but it grew to one of the biggest churches in Atlanta at the time. It was the making, I would believe, of the mega churches during that day. On several occasions, I listened to the radio here in DC. I heard the story on how Reverend Williams spoke broken English, but very effective in his delivery. One day, a Morehouse graduate, a very proud man, would always try to correct his English. And I found this very amusing. And he kept badgering Reverend Williams about his broken English. Well, Reverend Williams became annoyed. And being that he also went to Morehouse, but he did not like this man continuing to correct him. So one day he told the man, would you rather I say I is rich than I am poor? And I'm sure Reverend Williams put him in his place. And after that, the man stopped badgering about his broken English. Without a doubt, his grandfather, his maternal grandfather, was his first hidden figure. It is a coincidence that Reverend Williams' life and journey was almost a reflection to somewhat of what Martin Luther King did. I think so. I believe that was his first hidden figure. Well, the next hidden figure is not a particular person, but an institution. Like Howard University, Morehouse, which is formerly the Atlanta Baptist College, had so many wonderful, great leaders to grace their institution, including Benjamin Mays, a hidden figure, his grandfather, his father, and many others of his church members went to Morehouse, including our great Howard Thurman, and the man that I also want to talk about, and Mordecai Wyatt Johnson. Morehouse University educational philosophy set the foundation for all Morehouse males to consider and to implement. The first one was critical thinking, character development, development of a critical spiritual consciousness, and community responsibility, all of which embodied Martin Luther King. Again, even though it was a culmination of different people who brought these ideas and philosophies, and it shaped Martin Luther King as a young man coming into college as a young age at 16. All right, let's talk about another wonderful and amazing hidden figure, Mordecai Wyatt Johnson. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson was an educator and a pastor, and he also was the former president at Howard University for 34 years. It was Mordecai Johnson who first told Martin Luther King about Gandhi. When King was a student at Crozier Theological Seminary, he met Mordecai Johnson, and in a video, he explicitly says that Mordecai Johnson was very impactful of him understanding who Gandhi was. Mordecai Johnson brought Howard Thurman to Howard. So can you imagine having Mordecai Johnson and Howard Thurman on the same campus at the same time? And it's ironic at Howard University students have protested more than any other, I believe, campus around the globe, including just past fall. They protested for 2 months. But also at Howard, our administration building is graced by Mordecai Wyatt Johnson's name. But most people don't know the impact that he had on this man, this institution. Mordecai Johnson was a pastor. He was a wonderful pastor. But he brought all this experience to Howard. As a result, Howard became a magnificent university in his education and scholars. Mordecai Johnson was a hidden figure. Let's talk about the man that we're talking about during this series, Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman is a hidden figure among the masses, who was a person who became Martin Luther King's mentor. This man made a wonderful impact on his consciousness and practice. Howard Thurman was a Morehouse man. He graduated from at a time from Morehouse. He graduated from Rochester Theological Seminary, and he became the dean at Howard University Chapel. Right now, his picture graced one of the stained glass mirrors, and just about every year during a sermon at the Howard weekly Sunday service, someone talks about Howard Thurman. But let me just share this with you. Most of you all know he was also the dean at Boston University, where he actually began to influence Martin Luther King. And because of that connection and the things that Howard Thurman had to share with Martin Luther King, those years he spent, can you imagine, weekly and daily, he had his attention asking insightful, existential questions challenging the common Christian faith, oppression, but most of all, studying the life and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. When I was a student at Wesley, one of the topics that came up was about liberation theology. And I can't help but thinking that during the time Martin Luther King and Howard Thurman was at Morehouse, they talked about liberation theology. They talked about social justice and the teachings associated with Jesus. It was no longer talking about just, are you saved? But those conversations had to run deeper into the spirit, into the soul of these men. Let's move on. And so many people have recorded Martin Luther King information and his great influence around the world. One book that Martin Luther King would take with him, as so many of us have talked about, was entitled Jesus and the Disinherited. The book interprets the teaching of Jesus through the experience of the oppressed and discuss nonviolent responses to oppression. In 1935-36, Howard Thurman led a delegation to India and spoke directly with Gandhi. Gandhi was very interested about the Black American struggle and how he shared their philosophical ideas. Howard Thurman arrived at Boston at 1953. King arrived getting his doctorate at 1951 and 1955. So again, I talked about how they came together. and collaborated, but mostly Martin Luther King being the mentee and Howard Thurman being the mentor. So as a result of that, Martin Luther King became an important, well-learned individual. And the ideas that augmented from their meetings of philosophy of nonviolent and social gospel and liberation theology created one of the most powerful movements that we've had in this country. But let me, because of their union, a wonderful hidden figure emerged as we talked about so far. Let me just talk a little bit more, and we're going to close, about Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was honored with the name Mahatma, which is a Sanskrit word for great soul. Martin Luther King never met Gandhi, believe it or not. However, Howard Thurman not only met him and exchanged ideas, Howard Thurman influenced Martin Luther King on the philosophy associated with Gandhi and the teachings of Jesus. Bear with me, you all. This is important. What was Gandhi's spiritual philosophy? Well, let's start with the Gandhi. He was a Hindu. Gandhi's religious, and really not religious because it's more of a practice, was Hinduism. Gandhi's spiritual practice is something that he was born and raised in. Gandhi, Hinduism was never compromised. In fact, it was one of the most important things that led him to understanding nonviolence. Well, let me just share this with you. There's a term I never heard of until doing this research. There's a term called ahimsa, spelled A-H-I-M-S-A. The definition of ahimsa is nonviolence, love, and no harm. This concept is one of the most hidden concepts to the philosophy and spiritual practice of Martin Luther King and Howard Thurman, and the nonviolent movement, the nonviolent civil rights movement. Gandhi promoted the principle of ahimsa in his politics. No physical injury, nonviolence in any matter. And also part of in our mental state, he talks about there should be no evil thought, no evil intent, being unkind to each other, such as harsh words, dishonesty, and lying, all of which he saw as a manifestation of violence incompatible with ahimsa. Gandhi believed to be a creative force encompassing leaders to use this principle to define truth. He felt nonviolence is common to all religious practice, including Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism. Gandhi believed it takes more courage to act with nonviolence than violence. In his writings, Gandhi explains an ethical difference between brute force and the power to oppress, injure, and harm, and that of soul force, the force of love, nonviolence, passive resistance, and solving conflicts. Gandhi believed it was most important to resist that and all forms of oppression and unjust, but do so in a way such as non-cooperative, that does not conflict harm on others. He believed it took more courage to act with nonviolence again than violence. That's important. That's so important. Frequently, Gandhi modeled the power of nonviolence. And let's check this out. While living in South Africa, he nonviolently fought the issues of institutionalized racism on the railroad stations from 1893 to 1914. He increased his moral skills and intellectual skills and became a successful leader in South Africa and India's independence. Gandhi believed that the necessary transformation for others, cultivating an ahimsa, which is love and nonviolence, to attain freedom stemmed from his own experience of self-transformation in the practice of ahimsa, love, and nonviolence. Gandhi's ahimsa Hindu teachers gave more definition for me in the explanation of the teachings and practice of Yeshua, or Jesus. And if I may talk about, there was one example when in John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11, when the woman was about to be stoned, and Jesus says to them, those without sin cast the first stone. Jesus, we didn't know at the time, but this was a practice of ahimsa. It took more courage to speak truth to them, to defend the women by not fighting. It took exceptional thought and wisdom to make the Pharisees see themselves in a reflective mirror, to see their personal wrongs, which forced them to act if they were falling short on their own issues, their own coming short, their own missing the mark. One important point I want to make, Martin Luther King Jr. and Howard Thurman and Mordecai Johnson, Reverend Williams preached more of the social gospels and liberation, theology and language, to being saved. It was more than just being saved. It was more than just believing that you were going to the next life, to heaven. But it was our work here, our love practice, our nonviolence practice here to make a difference. And it was that philosophy of ahimsa, was a spiritual practice that allowed us to not fight fist to fist, but allow love and nonviolence to change the trajectory of the thinking of those who were the oppressors. Last but not least, in closing, The Hidden Figures, this wonderful movie that we experienced about these Black women that were asked to use their math and physics skills to allow the space exploration to succeed. Well, it was the spirit of ahimsa's practice philosophy. I call this a spiritual scientific philosophy that allow our civil rights movement to be effective. Didn't cause a war, even though when you get caught and you get pushed so hard and oppressed, you want to fight with weapons. But with the philosophy of ahimsa and nonviolence and speaking truth to power, allowed this movement to succeed. It allowed Martin Luther King in every step of the way to love, to use the philosophy that he learned as a child from his hidden figures to make this country great. It's nothing greater than love, despite any other behavior we might experience. Love is the medicine. Love is the medicine. Nonviolence, truth is the medicine. Thank goodness for those who taught him those hidden figures using the spiritual scientific principles that make us love and made us to once again try this movement to make it better here and to make this country great again. Thank you. Amen.
Mhm. Ooh, amen. Thank you so much, Usher. Wow. Ahimsa. Just invite you now to just turn inward with me and just take that word in. Allow it to truly reverberate and marinate in your consciousness, in your spirit, to fall deep into your soul. Ahimsa, love, nonviolence, non-resistant. Just be with that for just a moment. Just breathe it in. Even the sound of the word, ahimsa, has a healing vibration, a healing frequency to it. And as we tap into that power of love, realizing and recognizing that love dissolves all discord, anything unlike the nature of God. Just feel the power of love right now. As I invite you to turn inward into that very secret, sacred place within you, to move into that upper room, into that holy of holies, that inner sanctuary at the very center of your being. That place and that space where we truly feel and sense and become acutely aware of the power and the presence of God, that which is omnipotent, all powerful, making everything possible. I'm talking about that omniscient power and presence, that which is all knowing, it's infinite wisdom and divine intelligence. And it is omnipresent.
Yes.
It is fully present everywhere. Truly, there is no spot where God is not fully gloriously orbed and resplendent. And as I know this to be the absolute truth, I know that right where I am, the I am that I am, God is. And that which is true about me is true about everyone within the sound of my voice, and anyone and everyone that comes to mind. And it is from this place that I can speak my word with an absolute authority, an absolute certainty that the word that I speak cannot return void. It's a law whereunto it is sent. So what I know to be the absolute truth is that love permeates and is fully present everywhere.
That's right.
And we have the eyes and the clarity to see it and feel it and experience it as never, ever before. We allow this love to bubble up within us. And as a collective consciousness, just emanates and just fully expands into the collective consciousness, into the masses, where there truly is that activity of non-resistance, where we can tap into love and allow love to dissolve and transform all that which is unlike the nature of God. And God is whole, complete, and absolutely perfect right now in this moment. And so we get to tap into the perfection of pure spirit on every level. all of the discord. We allow this love to be the medicine, as Usher spoke about, to heal all of the social injustice, all that which is going on our planet, but also that which is going on right where we are. Any kind of discord that is happening in our personal lives, because it starts right where we are. When we're made whole, the collective is made whole. And so what I know is that the wholeness of God is ever present. I know that right where Julene is, God is whole, complete, and absolutely perfect. That her body temple is filled with the living spirit of the living God. And anything and everything unlike its nature, it has to fall away, dissipate, dissolve into the native nothingness from whence it came. It's a no thing trying to become a something. But in this high vibration, it cannot be sustained or maintained. So it falls away easily and effortlessly. I know that each and every need is met for everyone within the sound of my voice. For we are sourced by pure spirit, that which is lavish and abundant and opulent, and every need is already met. And we simply say yes to it and invite it in and just witness how we are divinely sourced by God through avenues known and unknown. I know that there's a peace that passes all human understanding. It has nothing to do with any situation or circumstance. And it surrounds and unfolds and undergirds us moment by moment. We tap into that peace. We breathe it in. We experience it. Peace and harmony and love and joy, unbounded joy is our divine birthright. For we are unique emanations of the Most High God. Another way in which the whole of life has come forward to express in a most magnificent way. And we just throw ourselves wide open to God and allow God to be God in and through and as us. I know this to be the absolute truth. And I call forth this good and anything else that is your heart's desire and does not hurt anyone else on the planet. It is already yours right now in this moment. And I give thanks for this awareness of what already is. And I simply allow it to be so. And so it is. Amen. Ashe. And amen.
Woo! Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to invite everybody to unmute yourself and give your offering of gratitude and thanks to our whole team that has been here today, to Robbin, to Usher, to Kristal, to Bill, to Julaine, to the virtual choir, to Deb, to everyone, especially our guests. So unmute and shout out your words of thanks if you feel like doing so, or type them in the chat box.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank
you.
Amen. Amen.
Love you.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this effort. Beautiful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've just been in tears on and off the whole service. I'm so grateful and so moved. And you are welcome, of course, to also send your offering to support the work of the Springfield Meetinghouse. Deb will put the information up there. And each month we choose a particular organization to support beyond the Meetinghouse. And this month we have chosen Better Life Labs, which is the organization that Seth Frisbee and his wife Erica founded. Seth is going to do the service that I mentioned earlier next week. He'll be preaching on his work around the world, helping with water quality and discovering and finding the solution for one of the greatest poisonings that has happened on our earth. So send your support to the Springfield UU Meetinghouse and also to Better Life Labs. So Sharon has the chalice to send us out with this bell, and let me offer these closing words, which are the same closing words that I opened with from Howard Thurman. We must find our place in the areas of new vitalities, the place where the old is breaking up and the new is being reborn. What a moment to be alive, and more importantly, what a moment to be aware. If you have found community here, treasure and support it. And if you have found challenge here, I hope you have, then go, and sit in stillness, as Howard Thurman recommends, whatever is stirring in your heart. And if you have found hope here, bring it out into our beautiful and bruised world that needs you, awake, aware, alive. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Bell, we formally end our service.